In this video, you will be a virtual participant in a breakout session about differentiation and pre-assessment, led by teacher consultant Rhonda Clevenson. In this session, you will be shown practical examples of how pre-assessment can enhance differentiation and maximize student performance. As you will learn, effective pre-assessment has many practical advantages. It is actually a time saver. It helps us to get to know our students, and it helps students take responsibility for their own learning. And now let's join Rhonda Clevenson for her presentation on practical pre-assessment.
I'd like to welcome everyone. I'm Rhonda Clevenson, and this is Practical Pre-Assessments, getting to know our learners without a multiple choice test. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a classroom teacher from Arlington, Virginia, a longtime classroom teacher, and lately I've been on loan to a Teaching with Primary Sources grant from the Library of Congress, along with about a dozen other classroom teachers in Northern Virginia. So today we're going to talk about pre-assessment, and right at the end we're going to use some primary sources as pre-assessment so I can kind of connect you to our grant. The materials we have here, the differentiated instruction brochures, are all on our website called Primary Source Learning, and it's a website where everything is just free and totally funded and created by classroom teachers like you and me. So I hope that you'll be able to use some of the materials from there as well. So let's get started with practical pre-assessment, the place where differentiation begins. In fact, this is such a great topic. Let's begin by giving a round of applause for pre-assessment. Let's give it up. Oh, very nice. But, you know, I have to tell you something. I believe that you can do better. In fact, I know that you can do better. In fact, let's take a look at this applause OMeter and see if it can help us with our performance. And I know that you've been down here at University of Virginia all day today, so I think we could probably focus on the You've Got It column. And let's look at some specifics with applause, some specific skills and pieces of applause, and see if we can improve our performance. Let's look at volume, for example. If we're in the You've Got It column, the applause is thunderous, making it hard for the speaker to talk over it. Okay? Let's think about dynamics for a moment. The applause erupts suddenly and is vigorous with no lulls and brisk movements of the arms and hands, right? Perhaps even the feet I could add to that criteria. And the tempo, the applause is rapid, prolonged, and accompanied by whoops and cheers, all right? Now, let's see if you can revise your performance. I'm going to give you an opportunity to revise, and let's see if you can give me a round of applause that would meet the criteria for the You've Got It column. Are you ready? All right, and go. Excellent, excellent. Would you say that your applause improved? Dramatic difference in the applause. In fact, we have captured this on tape, right? We could go back and rewind and listen to it and see. Why did your applause improve?
Because we knew what you were looking for, and there was specifics on where we wanted to be in the You Got It.
Good. Why else? Why else did your applause improve?
Because you told us to.
I told you to. Yes, that's right. In fact, the feedback I gave you was not only oral, I gave you some written feedback, didn't I? That I knew you could improve. So these are all reasons why our applause improved. And today we're going to look at ways that we can use assessment and the criteria related to assessment to increase our students' performance, and also as a basis for when we're going to differentiate instruction and why, right? And so today we're going to look at these questions. How can we make the most of the little time we have to teach? And I'm going to suggest that if we use a pre-assessment, our teaching will be more efficient, and we'll actually save time by taking the time to do the pre-assessment that oftentimes we don't think we have time to do. How can we get to know our learners as individuals, as people? And how can we help students take responsibility for their learning? We're going to look at who is the audience for the pre-assessment. Is it always the teacher? Or is it sometimes, and maybe most often, the student, and is it also the parent? So who is the audience of the pre-assessment? In your folder, I have everything that we're going to do today. So I'd like for you to take out this packet, this white staple packet, and then you can close your folder. On the first page, I have a quote. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I wonder if someone would be kind enough to read it out loud for us. Great, thank you.
If real success is to attend the effort to bring a man to a definite position, one must first of all take pains to find him where he is and begin there. To be a teacher in the right sense is to be a learner. Instruction begins when you, the teacher, learn from the learner. Put yourself in his place so that you may understand what he understands and in the way he understands it.
Thank you. Take a moment to reread that quote silently, and I'd like you to underline either a word or phrase, maybe even a sentence that really resonates with you out of that quote. Okay, and let's hear from a few people. What did you underline?
I underlined to be a teacher in the right sense is to be a learner.
And why did that resonate with you?
Just always the professional development aspect. You have to keep learning to teach.
Exactly. Great. Another quote or phrase?
I underlined the part where it said, put yourself in the child's place. I think when we plan our instruction, we should be thinking, would I really want to do this? Would I want to have to share this information in this way? Just think about how the kid must be feeling, especially to be maybe a middle schooler or an adolescent in that crazy time, and the whole peer thing.
And how does your phrase connect to what you've been learning about so far today?
Well, I guess this morning in the general big session, there was a mention of, the theme, I guess, this morning was making sure that we're challenging the kids through differentiation. And again, I think if you're thinking of the kid who's sitting there and maybe knows already what it is you're trying to teach, and to put yourself in that position, how would you feel if you were, forced to sit there and, when you already could do the assignment 10 times over?
Exactly. Great. Someone underline something different over here?
I underlined the find him where he is and begin there. I think that's an important piece. That's what pre-assessment is about, finding out where they are and moving from there.
That's exactly right. So on that note, what do we know? Have you ever used boxing before? I'm going to tell you the two choices, and then I'm going to invite you to choose one of the choices and write down what you know about pre-assessment, okay? And I'm going to make sure, I'm going to send around a piece of paper and have you put down your name and your email, and I will email this to you so that you'll have it digitally, so you don't have to. So I want you to write on these. And we also have lots of extra, too. This is called boxing, and in boxing, you take any topic, and of course, today we're going to take pre-assessment. And in the center, you draw a picture or a diagram or any kind of graphic that describes your experience with pre-assessment, and then you work around and answer the questions. This has to do with what else do I know about pre-assessment and questions I have about this. And then you summarize your whole box down here with like a big title in words, summarize all of your graphic and the comments that you wrote. And you can write anywhere on the box. So that's called boxing, when you box an idea or topic with what you already know. And this is one of my favorites. This is just a chart, a think chart, right? And so you're going to put the topic, in this case it would be pre-assessment, and things that you think you know about pre-assessment and questions that you have. Okay? So I'd like to invite you to take the next just couple of minutes to either complete the boxing chart or the think chart on pre-assessment. Okay? And now what I'd like you to do is to share just a few of the ideas with some of the people at your table.
We give like a unit test as a pre-assessment and say the child aces that. How does that work in with their grade then? Is that like, if they got an A on the unit test as the pre-assessment, should I count that as like the test grade? And then are they opted out of like all the activities that we were going to do?
Questions I have is, Can you give the same tests that you give, the pre and the post? That's a lot of teachers I work with want to do that. Is that okay? Is that what you're supposed to do? Like, I have questions around that. Other ways to pre-assess besides the multiple choice way. And so my words, a summary were, need to know where students are to get them where they need to go.
I guess what I was trying to depict here was the teacher trying to impart information without knowing where the kid's at first, and the kid's got a question mark, like, what are you talking about? And then the second one, the teacher's questioning first to find out where the kid's at, and then the kid has a light bulb going off, because then he's able to more easily, find out what she's talking about. So that's my little picture.
Now what we're going to do is take a look at a whole bunch of practical strategies, and we're going to try to choose some practical strategies for pre-assessment. But why are we going to choose them? What's going to make one pre-assessment work better for us than another? And another thing that came up in this discussion over here that I heard that I wanted to address was timing. When does pre-assessment occur in a lesson? Does it occur at the beginning of the lesson? Does it occur in the middle? Does it occur at the end? When do we do pre-assessment, and when do we act on that information? Right? After we do a pre-assessment, the lesson is already planned. We have the materials already made. So when are we going to act on the pre-assessment? So when does pre-assessment happen?
Before you make the lesson.
Before you make the lesson. So is it likely that the pre-assessment is going to occur at the top of the lesson and then the lesson is going to continue? No. Right. Pre-assessment is rarely going to occur. Well, some people, it depends on what you're pre-assessing for, right? What the purpose of the pre-assessment is. But most pre-assessments, if you're actually going to act on that pre-assessment and differentiate instruction, the lesson that follows that pre-assessment occurs at a later time, right? So I used to always do my pre-assessments. As I got better and better at differentiated instruction, my pre-assessments were always at the end of a lesson. And at my last job, I taught elementary school, and then I was secondary. And when I was secondary, I would organize my lessons, so I would actually do my introduction at the back half of a period. So you could take it to the bank, the bell was going to ring, and the kids were going to change right at the end of my pre-assessment. So if the results of pre-assessment is that we want to document the need for differentiated instruction, we want to make differentiated instruction defensible, and if we want to ensure that instruction is meaningful and motivating, that our students are engaged in their zone of proximity to the content that we're teaching, right? We don't want it to be too hard. We don't want it to be too easy. We want to determine students' starting points for new information, what they have and how we can build, how we can bridge. And we want to share the responsibility for setting goals with the students. I think that's one of the biggest things about differentiated instruction, what you were saying, that you have to interview the students, and the students have to play some role in it. We're not deciding who should get this or who should get that, but they are involved in that decision. So let's just review some of our criteria. We're looking for things that are going to save us time and lead to efficient and effective instruction, to help us get to know the learners, and to help the students take responsibility for their own learning, and a pre-assessment that's going to further instruction. And we're going to look at 4 more strategies. This next one is going to be a formal. We're going to do the hardest one first, and then it'll get easier for you. Okay, so the hardest one first is a formal strategy. And this is, have you guys ever created the toughest questions you could for a unit? So what you're going to do is you're going to create a tough question, and it says here 5, but 2, 1, 3 would be great. 1 question at least would be great. 2 or 3 would be really good. So you're going to think of a unit that you teach, even it could be the seasons for young children, whatever unit that is coming up this spring that you're going to teach. Think of a unit or that's going to be taught in your school. And what you want to do is come up with about 3 really tough questions. If the kids could respond to this question, and they might respond to this question depending on their age, verbally, through drawing, through writing, through a combination, through building, right? Some way they're going to respond to this question. And if the students could respond to this question, you'd really know they understood. They'd be able to demonstrate an understanding. They'd be able to show all the facts and the knowledge that they have, and they'd be able to use some communication skill to do it too, right? So a good question that really gets at the heart of a unit. So we're looking to make a good question, and we could use it as a writing prompt or some other kind of communication if writing wasn't it. So see if you can think of a really good, tough question. Okay? So go ahead. You're going to think of a unit and then somewhere between 1 and 3 tough questions. Okay, and as you start to get your questions, I want you to share your question with someone else at the table. And what we're looking for is what makes a really good formal assessment kind of question, right? What are the characteristics of one of these questions that make them very useful? So we're looking for what would make one of these questions very useful in assessing our students.
My question was compare and contrast the 5 regions of Virginia, describe information on their products, industry, history, and geography of each region, describe ways the regions are alike and different. I've actually used something like that with my gifted kids that were clustered in my room, and you know, basically they just unload all of what they know, and if I can document that, you know, they've got tobacco, fall line, you know, all the little buzzwords that they need to know for the curriculum, then, you know, I sort of let them move on to something else because I feel like they've got what they need to know.
Jackson County, Virginia. So it's borders Ohio, but they don't, you know, not
right.
the north.
So we're going to look at this painting. And I'd like for you to think about the questions below, and I'd like for you to choose one question that would be of most interest to you in considering this work of art. And then I'm going to ask you to answer the question. Okay, so first look at the 5 questions. And I'd like you to choose a question that would interest you. A is, does this picture express an emotion? How do the colors, shapes, and lines help to make that happen? N, does this work of art speak to you? If so, is it asking you a question or giving you an answer? F, which part of this work do you think the artist considered to be the most important, and why? Q, look at what is happening in this work of art. Are things moving quickly or slowly? How can you tell? E, can you clap a rhythm that sounds like what you see? So I'd like you to turn the page and just jot down for a moment. I started my thinking with this response to the question. So think about which question you chose, and then what is your initial thinking? When you choose that question, jot down a little bit about your initial thinking, just for a few seconds. And after you've had a chance to answer the question, I want you to reread your answer and think about the kinds of thinking that you just did. How would you describe your thinking? What kind of thinking are you doing in your answer? What do you notice about your thinking? And go ahead and jot down some notes just about the thinking that you see in that answer. And after you've finished thinking about your thinking for a minute, go ahead and share your responses with a neighbor, with an elbow partner. You want to share what question you chose, your answer, and some thoughts about your thinking. So you're going to share 3 things with an elbow partner. Ready? And go ahead.
Position in the painting and the bright colors in contrast to the black that everybody else was wearing.
Because of the bright primary colors and the contrast with the dark.
She had more of a face.
It was strong kind of lines. I guess I just kind of felt like it was more
features
boisterous, maybe.
than-
I can see that, absolutely. And on my thinking, I think I really connected to the colors and the shapes.
I'm going to draw your attention actually to the back, where I have the bibliographic information. This is a Romare Bearden painting called, the title is Empress of the Blues. Who do you think the female singer might be? It's actually Bessie Smith, but it could have been Ella Fitzgerald, right? It happens to be Bessie Smith, and so I put a picture of her there. Excellent. And what do you notice about the date? Anything? 1936 of when she was popular. And he painted this painting actually many years later, right? This was not painted at the time that she was popular. Okay. And then I would invite you to go back to your thinking, and now that you know more information about the painting and the person the painting is depicting, you could probably add some information, right, of things you know about the painting. Like, for example, what was happening in the United States when she was singing? Right? Just out of the Depression. Good. Harlem. Good. Good. Prohibition. Good, good, good. Excellent. Right. So then we would find out about that. Good. And then finally, I would ask you to reflect on our learning together and our exploration of this painting, and to identify what you learned about yourself or about the painting or about your friends that you worked with, right? What did you learn from the little activity that we just did? Okay. All right. And I'm going to stop this activity here. Is this a pre-assessment? What is this? If it was a pre-assessment, what would we be looking for? The purpose would be to find out what?
Maybe a person's initial thoughts when they look at artwork, what type of information they're looking for, because each of those questions focuses on a different type of information.
Good.
I'm going to guess that it has to do with your type of learner. Because since the last question deals with clapping a rhythm, that would be the kinesthetic hands-on learner. I think that the question that you choose to answer is what kind of learner you are.
So looking more at our learning profile, our interest, the lens that we bring. This is actually what Howard Gardner calls entry points. Entry points has to do with, he actually does not believe teachers ever should design 8 different activities for any topic, right? That's not what his theory's about. His theory's about describing how the brain works, and not how we should teach in any stretch of the imagination. But he has gone on to write about a thing called entry points. And he says there's at least 5 different windows that students could enter into a topic, and at least 5 different windows where students could exit. So it's entry-exit points, where they could leave a topic, where they could demonstrate their understanding, knowledge, and skills. And the 5 entry points are on the back at the top here. And they're the narrative, telling a story of what you see and hear, the story of the topic. The quantitative, looking at the numbers of the logistics of a story or a topic. The foundational, which would be like share your theory about why. The foundational is the big question of why this topic is important. Why do we remember the Gettysburg Address? Why is this important? Is a foundational kind of question. The aesthetic, right? The colors, the shapes, the patterns. The experiential, the way we can experience the content and the topic. And so those are our 5 entry points, and he writes about that in Intelligence Reframed, and I put the reference of the book there for you. And so I just did that for you to show you an entry point, the idea of inviting learners to come in, just like you said, with our learning profiles, with the strengths that we bring, with our intelligence strengths, inviting them to enter into a topic through one of those strengths. Is it a good assessment of their multiple intelligences? No. No, it's not, right? You'd have to have an awful lot of intrapersonal intelligence to assess your own intelligence, right? So that would not be the case. But the case would be to come to some understanding that there's at least 5 different ways to invite learners into a topic, and the more invitations we offer, the more chances everyone will find a route in that's a good fit for them. So that's how I use entry points. And the reason I wanted to do entry points with you, because once you start to learn these questions, as I got better at it, I used to keep a little index card up by the front with this listed out for me. And when I started to see parts of the class just not with me, you know, when you start to see that you're losing everyone, I would look at the card and think about the conversation we're having, and then I would offer an invitation in another area and see how many different invitations I could offer quickly, just in a conversation at the top of class, or if you're doing an assessment, what did we learn today, and try to throw out as many different invitations in my questioning as I could. And I felt, I wish I could have done a research study on it. I felt it made a difference in grabbing. I used to have big classes, like 36 kids in a class in the middle school, and it was hard for me to get that back row in all the time. Even if I switched and stood in the back, then I'd lose the front. You know? So I would encourage you to, I just wanted to show you that strategy as well. It's an interesting one. I wanted just to review again, our goals today were to make the most of the little time we have to teach, to get to know our learners, and how can we help students take responsibility for their learning. Great. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for participating in practical pre-assessment, and I'd like to encourage you to use these strategies to get to know your learners. Thank you very much.
We invite you to visit the Primary Source Learning website at www.primarysourcelearning.org. You can use the free resources available on the site, or create your own and share them with teachers worldwide. It is an easy and fun way to differentiate your literacy instruction or enhance any other subject area.